All right, welcome to RetireJapan TV, where we talk about personal finance, investing, retirement, life in Japan, and all sorts of random nonsense that just pops into our heads. How you doing, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. A little holiday, which I might talk about later.
You
So
got
really
a tan,
refreshed.
haven't you? Where did you get a
This is-
tan in the depths of winter?
Yeah, strange, isn't it? Yeah, somewhere pretty warm. I'm British, so I actually went bright red on my shoulders and peeled straight away rather than going through the tan stage. But still, it was a great trip.
Awesome. Somewhat tropical.
Below the equator.
Ooh,
And I forgot to check
fancy.
that plug hole, the plug hole thing. I keep thinking, I want to see if that really happens, the reverse.
You're in the southern hemisphere.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, there's a blizzard right now in Sendai. I walked outside and there's like horizontal snow everywhere. I was like, what the hell?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. The cold front, the predicted cold front is hitting. So
I think we're getting that tomorrow.
By Tuesday, when I think I might go for a little cheeky snowboarding session, I think the snow is going to be very, very nice by Thursday-ish. All right, so
you broke up.
We have a show for you tonight.
Yes.
Right.
You're breaking up a bit for me, Ben. I'm hoping it's just me.
What's that?
You're breaking up a bit for me, but I'm hoping it's just my connection.
Possibly. You look okay. So.
Okay. All right. Good.
Excellent. Right. Well, before we started, I wanted to just make a quick observation about exercise. Long-time listeners are probably bored to death of me banging on about my struggles with exercise and health and stuff. But this last week, about a week, for the last week or so, I started doing exercise again after about a 6-week break. So I went to the Philippines, had an absolutely disastrous Philippines trip, incredibly stressful, almost killed me. Got back, got flu, of course. I think my immune system was toast after the Philippines trip. And then kind of drifted into February, basically. I wasn't doing the exercise I'd been doing last year. I wasn't training jiu-jitsu. I wasn't even watching my diet. So all like zeros across the board in terms of score. But last week, I started doing one thing. And I think this is the key. Like just picking one thing to work on. And this works with money as well, with personal finance. If you try and do everything, you're going to get overwhelmed and not do anything. And it's same with me. So like I want to lift weights, I want to stretch, I want to walk, I want to swim, I want to do jiu-jitsu, I want to watch my diet. And if I try and do all of that, it's just not going to happen. So the key for me is to pick one thing. Pick one, I call it a Keystone habit. So you do one thing and then you just focus on doing that one thing. But by doing one thing, you get momentum going. You get some success, you feel good, and it motivates you to do the other things. And so in the end, you end up doing all of them because you've had that success, you build that momentum. But the key is to just focus on the one thing rather than beat yourself up for not doing all of them. And it worked. So I started doing weights. That was my Keystone habit because I have some dumbbells here in my office. So it's very easy for me to do a dumbbell workout. Did that. Went to jiu-jitsu, started eating better, watching my diet, started walking more. I haven't done the swimming yet, but it's coming. So that's my recommendation. If you're in a bad place, if you're trying to make some big changes, don't think about the big changes. Think about one small change and win, get that success going, and it'll build momentum. It'll help you build the habits again, I think. So that's my little trick. And then mental health-wise, I feel amazing. Whereas I had quite a rough start to the year. I was a bit down. So the mind-body connection is so strong. So a lot of the time, if you're not feeling great, it could just be a lack of movement, basically. So that's my advice today. If you're worried about some big thing, just pick a small thing and do that, and that'll break you out of your jam, basically.
Yeah, incremental wins, says Robert on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Well done.
speaking of
Well done.
psychology,
yeah. So there's this podcast I like called Nudge. I should have got the link ready, shouldn't I? And it's mostly about marketing and stuff. But this the most recent episode, he just picked some sort of behavioral science stuff that can be useful in everyday life. So there's little life tips, and a couple of them I thought, oh, that could relate to improving your finances, personal finance. I'll put the podcast link in. Oh, you've already done it. Thanks. And so first of all, in the podcast, he was talking about loss aversion, how we hate losing things. And so if there's some kind of like product or something that we like, we hate losing it much more than we actually like getting it. And made me think, okay, you can apply that to like losing money somehow. There must be a way. And then that led on to all these other things, like what other like psychological trick can you play on yourself? And I tried to make a list, and I thought we could go through it and see if you think they're helpful. Have we tried any of these ourselves? Has anybody listening tried them themselves? And maybe we can
actually, before that though,
fool ourselves to be better with money.
Yeah. So before that though, so I'm not sure that is universal, that loss aversion thing.
Oh, really?
I mean, I think there's a spectrum, and I think people are somewhere on that spectrum. For example, I don't really find that as much.
Interesting.
So I'm not super affected by loss of stuff. So I think there's a personal variability in there. So it's going to be different for different people. Some people are going to be very loss averse, and some people are going to be less loss averse. But most people have some bit of it, maybe. Okay. So bring on the tricks.
Right. So the first one, so loss aversion. I've got it as number 2. Anyway, I was thinking, how could you make that into? I did get a bit of help from AI here. How could you sort of like convert that to avoiding losses yourself? And if you think of yourself in the future, and you really have to sort of almost physically imagine yourself in the future, you as a person, you're maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit more handsome or beautiful, but yourself in the future, money that you spend right now on stuff that you don't really need, you're effectively taking away from your future self. So your future self is losing money because of that frivolous thing that you're about to buy. Maybe you're okay with that, but that might sort of lead you to just take a break and maybe not spend that stuff. The same way with debt payments as well. You're taking out debt, you're effectively taking money away from your future self. So your future self is losing money. And I think that could be quite powerful, framing it like that, as to like, yeah, that's losing money. That's a loss. I don't really want to do that.
Possibly. I do like the future self analogy. But I think it's something that you have to balance, because you can be too future focused. And therefore, take away from your present life. So I always talk about balancing the, being happy now. So present self being happy now and future self being happy in the future. You want to make sure both of those happen.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, anything that changes your thinking with regards to money, I think can be powerful. So it's up to everyone to figure out what that little tweak is.
And I should say, I don't think these are like rules that you must do. It's just ideas. And if you want to follow it, great. If you don't, fine. Because I think, if you said before, if you haven't got that self-motivation to do something, you're not going to follow it anyway. So this is just ideas to help you if you're already in that frame of mind where, yeah, I want to do something to improve my finances. So another psychological trick, behavioral science thing is a thing called default bias or status quo bias, where we tend to stick with the defaults. And we all know this. You get these defaults on an app or the browser or something like that. And we've got all these settings, but we never usually actually go in and change things. Whatever is a default when we install it, we usually stick with that. And this has been used for good and bad. What is it? There are some European countries that have organ donor cards as opt in, and there are some that have organ donor cards that opt out. You're automatically opted in, and you have to choose to opt out. And the two rates of organ donorship, would you call it, are incredibly different depending on whether the default is opt in or opt out. So we can use that ourselves by creating our own default for our personal finance, which basically comes down to automatic saving and investing. So set up a monthly payment into your investment account or whatever, going into a NISA. You won't think about it. You may be tempted to go in and edit it, but you probably won't get around to it. So as long as you've got it set up at the beginning, it's going to tick over nicely, and then before you know it, you're building up a nice nest egg.
I think, yeah, and then an extension of that is managing your environment.
In what way?
So, for example, if you're having food issues and you don't buy certain foods, then you're not going to eat them because they're not in your house. If you've got issues with screen, addiction or whatever, leaving your phone in a different room, it removes it from your environment. It creates that kind of extra. And the same with money, so if you say, okay, so I'm not gonna, I'm gonna put my credit cards in the safe and I'm gonna give the combination to my wife and she's not gonna give me the credit cards back. And then I've got, X amount of cash that I can spend this month, and that's it. You can create these limitations, which, encourage you into a kind of default way.
Yeah. I had somebody mention it the other day where they moved the fruit to the different level of the kitchen, so it's easier to grab to encourage them to eat it more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, like putting in this standing desk, it means that I do meetings and stuff, and I stand up because I raise the camera to eye level. So that creating a default, automating stuff, and changing your environment. Another aspect of changing your environment, we're going to talk about it later, actually. So I'll save it for that.
Okay. What? Okay, get ready, folks. It's coming up later. The next thing I've got is called the term for it is friction effect or pain of paying, and I was thinking you could have you're going to have some kind of self what's the word, motivation, my English is terrible recently. Let's call it self-motivation,
self-control,
that's the word. Thank you. For control, if you want to control your non-essential spending, let's say you have a habit of getting these little things, like recently every time I go to the shed office I'll get a coffee on the way, and when I think about it, it's a bit more expensive than it should be. So if I wanted to stop that, one way could be for me to only pay with cash for this coffee that I get. And then, I don't know, to me, paying with cash feels more painful than paying with a card or an app, because that's so easy. Pay with cash, you can actually see the numbers on the banknotes. You can physically feel it coming out of your wallet, out of your hand. And so it's a little bit harder to pay. It makes it a little bit more real that you are losing this money to that thing that maybe you don't really need.
There's all sorts of research that says that paying with a credit card, you end up spending 20 to 30% more.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you're having issues with your spending, then definitely getting away from credit cards, even debit cards, online spending is going to help. Like John, my co-host on our Your First 10 Million Yen course, he does the envelope system still with cash. And the envelope system is where you make a budget, say you got 100,000 yen to spend, and you actually you take out 100,000 yen and you get a bunch of envelopes with bills, rent, food, shopping, restaurants, and you put the cash in the envelope. And then when you're paying for that thing, you use that envelope, and once it's emptied, and that's it. You're not buying any more food or whatever. Really old school, but it works because it's friction, it's real, it's constraints. Real example of that.
Yeah. Wow.
Very hard.
That's impressive. Kind of similar to that is the next one, the envelope system. So I have this in Wise. I have a couple of jars. So, people may or may not know. In Wise, and maybe some other bank accounts, you can set up little sub accounts almost, and it's basically a savings jar, a digital savings jar. And you can put money in there whenever you want, just sort of transfer it from your main part of the account into this savings part of the account, and use it for something in the future. And the really good thing about that is it psychologically separates it from the stuff that you're spending every day. So, it's a little bit more likely that you're going to keep it and build that up, hopefully. But I don't know about you, but saving sounds so boring to me. It's like, I got to save. And I was trying to get my son into the habit as well. You should save money. And it's like, even saying it sounds so boring. So I think there's a thing called the specificity principle. And this is where if something is more specific, then it's more likely to sort of, I don't know, inspire you to action. So I think, this is my theory, you should rename savings fund or emergency fund or whatever to something more specific for what that thing is going to be used for. So emergency fund is something that everybody should have. But again, that sounds pretty boring. So why not call it a get me out of trouble fund or panic mode fund or something a little bit more interesting where, okay, I see why.
Get out of jail free fund.
Right. Oh, everything's gone terrible. Help fund. And then it's a bit more clear as to why you need that rather than just, I don't know, emergency sounds a bit bland. And similarly, you're saving a savings jar and you could have something specific that you are saving for. So nice new Ferrari, maybe, or a trip to Bali, for example. And then you could call it your Bali fund or your Ferrari fund or whatever. And maybe you'll never get that Ferrari, but by the time you are close, you've got enough to spend on something else that you might prefer instead.
I've actually done this, and by the time you spend like 3 years saving up money for whatever it is, you don't want to buy it. It's not worth it. Which is good because you learn something, right? You learn something about yourself. So
yeah. My sister actually, for a while, she did a kind of similar thing, but she actually had a physical picture of somewhere, like fancy location for a holiday, to sort of encourage her, like, this is what I'm saving for. And physically she could see it. It's like, yeah, that's where I want to go. And I don't think she actually ended up going to that particular place, but still, it was there to help motivate her to save up.
I quite like having physical, like you have a bar chart that you fill in with a marker as you go up it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like those like charity kind of visuals where you, that kind of thing. Having it front of mind, displayed. Actually, a bit of a tangent. Are we allowed to do tangents on this show? Are we
okay, but we're going to come back to that because go ahead.
So someone was posting on LinkedIn about this widget they added to Notion, and it's a widget that you can customize a little bit, but basically it tells you what day you're on for this year. So like currently we're on day 48 for 2025, right? And we're on the 17th day of this month out of 28. And today's Monday, so it's the first day of the week. And it's 8 o'clock, so we're 20 hours into today, and it just displays this as a bar graph. And you can also put on your lifespan. So like, this is year 47 for me out of 88. And he finds it motivating. I quite like it. I can see you don't like it.
It's scary for me.
I like thinking about this stuff. It's the whole like stoic thing where you imagine the worst thing possible and it takes the edge off things, kind of thing. But yeah. So if anyone is interested in that,
okay,
it's a free widget, and if you use Notion, it's pretty cool. I've got it on my like task list page. So every time I look at that, I see the little bars, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, kind of thing.
For people not familiar with it, Notion is a kind of online dashboard, Google Sheets, like document, fancy document
thing.
Productivity thing. Now we're going back to what you were saying about actually writing down a chart or something.
Actually, that feeds into the.
It is. It goes well nicely to the next one.
Spike.
Duolingo. People may be familiar with Duolingo, the sort of language learning app, which is pretty good and amazingly popular. And one thing that they do very well is they have streaks. And I think you could use this. Well, in fact, I have used this not for personal finance, but for another thing, for keeping a good habit going. And so it could either be on a calendar or something, or it could physically be on a piece of paper that you've got on the fridge. and you give yourself a little tick or a circle or something every day. You do something that you want to do, like not spending money or saving a little bit of money or something, and then you see how long you can keep that streak going. And I can't remember what I did this for. It might have been push-ups, actually, press-ups. I was trying to do it every day, and it was pretty effective, actually. You after you get quite a long streak, you really don't want to break it. And so it gets to the end of the night, no, bedtime, oh, I've got to do that. I can't break the streak. And then you force yourself to do it. It's pretty powerful. So I think
Jerry
that can be...
Seinfeld talks about this.
Oh, what does he say?
He just said, what's the secret to, your work or your stuff? He's like, just don't break the chain. So every day you do it and you cross it off on the calendar, and then you just don't break that chain. And once the chain's long enough, you don't want to break it, right?
Oh, this is not a comedy routine. This is actually like something.
That's actually
serious.
his actual technique or whatever.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And it works. Yeah, I used to do something similar for jiu-jitsu. So like I'd have green circles on the days when I went to practice and on a monthly calendar. And once you have a nice kind of streak of green circles, you don't want to have gaps. So it is very effective, I think.
Yeah.
It's a visual representation of something that's becoming a habit or has become a habit.
Yes. So it's rewarding as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you get to do a green circle, which is fantastic.
Okay, so moving on. The next one I have, this is again something I heard. Oh, I think it was the same podcast actually. So we have shrinkflation. As you know, as we know, they changed the size of product packages in the supermarkets slightly smaller so that we pay the same money but we get less. I think we can work it to our advantage. And so on the podcast, this guy was saying that apparently, and there's some science paper I think to back this up, getting kids to eat more vegetables is slightly easier if you put it on a bigger plate, because the little portion of vegetables looks relatively smaller compared to if it's on a small plate. Therefore, they'll eat some, they say, oh, I don't want to eat anymore. And they've eaten more than they would if it were on a tiny plate and the pile of vegetables looks huge and they can't face it, basically.
Psychological, yeah.
Right. So the other way around, and I've heard people talk about this for dieting or something, use smaller plates and you tend to eat less. So I like a little glass of wine every now and then, but if I used a smaller glass of wine, I would probably drink less and make the wine last longer, or maybe not at all.
Because it's full. Because the small wine glass is full of wine. You can't put any more wine in. But if you get one of those enormous ones and you put in like this much wine, it's really disappointing. So you want to, I can see that.
Yeah. And the same with a plate for a slice of cake. We've got really small plates here. I might start using those because then the cake will fill the plate and it'll feel like I'm eating loads. So
and even it makes you stand up and go and get another helping if you really want to. Right? There's another friction point. You have to stand up and go and get more of it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, that's one I haven't tried yet, but it sounds plausible.
I'm struggling to fit that into money though. I think it works really well for food.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah,
how do you make money look big or small? Like,
I was thinking on cutting down on your alcohol bill, for example. If you drink, maybe it's more
if you're drinking enough to have an alcohol bill, I think there's an issue. There's a health issue there. It's not a money issue.
Yeah. Okay. Right. This is tea in here, by the way.
Tea.
Right. Tea or tequila. Right. The next thing is this came from the Your Money or Your Life book, which I think we both really enjoy and got a lot out of. And this is thinking in time, not money. Yeah, this really hit me when I was listening to it. And it's kind of a simple concept, but for some reason I hadn't thought of it. So yeah, you think about how much your hourly your time is worth on an hourly basis. And I would say, just my salary, or even if you're part-time worker, you get paid an hourly rate. But in the book, they really sort of calculate it in more detail, don't they? They take not just the hours you've worked, but the hours in the day and blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure if it's really worth going into that much detail. If it's too complex, then there's less likelihood that people are going to actually do it. But anyway, you give yourself some kind of figure that is a yen or dollar figure or whatever per hour. And then when you buy something, instead of saying this fancy pair of shoes is 20,000 yen, you would say this fancy pair of shoes is 10 hours. And then is this pair of shoes really worth me working 10 hours at my job for? And that
And actually
could swing you
visualize
to-
those 10 hours, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're making a
Yes.
decision, like think about it. I'm going to go to work for more than a day.
Right.
Or I
Yes.
could
Yes.
not.
Just for these pair of shoes. Yeah. Yeah. That really, really helped me sort of reevaluate the things that I was spending money on.
And actually, I was talking to my wife about this today. So we were talking about Costco. So right now, petrol in Japan, gasoline is a wee bit expensive, isn't it? It was like it's almost 190 a liter now, which is a lot more than it used to be.
Yeah.
But Costco, it's quite a lot cheaper. It's kind of 160 something. So it's significantly cheaper to get petrol at Costco. And we were talking about that. And some people, because it's cheaper, will go to Costco to get petrol, even though it's, you know, it's far away. It's a drive. You have to line up because everyone else has got the same idea. And, you know, for us to fill our car, even if it was 20 yen a litre cheaper, we'd save, what, 600 yen on a full tank? Maybe 600, 800 yen. But to spend 2 hours... You know, driving to Costco, queuing, getting the petrol, driving back, using petrol to get, you know, to save 800 yen is nonsense, right? My time is worth far more than 400 yen an hour, whatever, 500 yen an hour. And so I think that equation works both ways. So not just the money is worth my time, but my time is also worth money. And I think a lot of people who are really good at saving and managing their finances don't get that. They don't flip it. So, you know, I mean, money is a store of value, basically. And, you know, at certain times of your life, you're going to be more focused on trying to accumulate money. And then later on, you might be more focused on using your money effectively. And one way to use your money effectively is to buy back your time. And therefore, you need to make that mental switch. So I think it's a really useful metric, you know, how much time is worth money and how much money is worth time and so on.
Yeah.
Because you can always make more money. But no one can make more time yet, apart from that weird guy who wants to live forever and, you know, has his multi-million-dollar health routine thing. What's his name? Brian something? You must have seen the stories.
Oh, was it quite recently? It came up.
Brian Johnson. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No. Is it Johnson? Brian someone.
I don't know. I saw it somewhere recently. And I just
here we go.
it.
Yeah, Brian Johnson. Weird guy. Made a fortune. Made 800 million, sold his company, and then decided he was going to work on longevity. And the way he's working on longevity is experimenting on himself. So he spends like millions of dollars a year on like medical treatments to help him live forever.
Okay.
So maybe he can buy more time, but the rest of us can't. So
right, yeah. I think the something I've got older I've thought about is that the even if you're okay with queuing up at Costco, you know, and you know that you want to save that 600 yen or 800 yen, it's not just the time and the money, but also the mental health side of it. Like you're not totally relaxed. You're spending an hour or something, potentially getting frustrated in a line, when you could be at home having your cup of tea on the sofa during that hour. And I think that's worth a lot as well.
Yep. That's one reason I don't carry point cards.
Why? Because of the stress
of the mental
out?
Bandwidth, like having to remember that they exist and you know, having to remember that I need to cash them in by a certain date. And
I see.
So most stores, unless it's like Rakuten Points or something where I can just, you know, it's one app on my phone. If it's like some bakery thing where I get a stamp every 500 yen and after 20 stamps I get a free roll, I'm like, I don't care. I don't want it.
Yeah, I've changed a bit as well. I used to get annoyed. Like, I forgot the supermarket card, but now it's like, okay, big deal. I'm not going to, you know, waste brain cells worrying about that.
Yeah.
What have I got next on my list? Framing. So the changing the a dollar or a yen amount into time. That's kind of a framing, changing the perspective thing. Similarly, This came up, I think it was The Richest Man in Babylon book, which I really, really like. It's quite a short book, but this is one of the early books I read about finance, and it really changed my thinking. And this is, don't think of saving and investing as money going out of your account, which is what I used to do. Think of it as paying yourself. The book actually calls it pay yourself first. So the first thing you do when you get your salary is you pay yourself first. And initially, like, that's weird. It's like, I just got my salary. I've already been paid. But no, that money is not yours because it's going to go out into bills and all this stuff. So pay yourself first by putting that into a savings jar or a barley fund, or your get me out of jail free fund or whatever. And then you've paid yourself. You've not lost that money. It's like kind of your reward. That
I'm a big
it's just
fan
changing
of
the way
that.
of thinking, but it helped me.
Yeah, I think I wrote about it last week, actually, on the blog. So the thing that really helped me invest more, save more, was reframing investing as from this abstract thing. You know, I should invest because it's good. I changed it into buying future income. So I basically said, okay, so if I invest something now and I invest it for 30 years, it's probably going to multiply itself by 8, and then, you know, I get a 4% return on that as the 4% rule. And so every 10,000 yen is buying X amount of future income. And then it got more exciting. It was more like, you know, one of those city builder video games where you're like, okay, I'm going to build up my future income now. And that really helped me. So yeah, money is so psychological. You know, it's not about numbers. It's not about knowledge. It's not about, you know, understanding how different investments. It's psychological. If you get the psychology right, doesn't matter what else you do, you're going to be fine. And if you get the psychology wrong, doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are, you're not going to manage your money effectively. So
this next one, I don't find this really works for me, but I'll interested to hear what you think. So social proof, or the accountability principle. And this is where you tell your friends your goals. So I'm going to get, you know, free of credit card debt, or I'm going to save up to buy a deposit for a house or something, or I'm going to stop getting Starbucks every day or something. You tell your friends your goal, and then both their encouragement can help you stick to it, hopefully, and then they'll hold you to it, hopefully, and then maybe they'll join in as well, and then you're not alone, you're doing it together. And social proof kind of makes you keep that habit more. I've told friends in the past, not about a particular financial goal, but about like this, I'm going to start this business, or I'm going to start this website or something. And it hasn't really helped me actually fulfill that any more than not telling anybody. So I don't know about this. What about you?
I completely disagree with this. Mainly because of this TED Talk that I just posted. So I don't know if you know Derek Sivers.
Yes, like him.
I love Derek Sivers. Fantastic guy, great speaker. I've read all his books. Really interesting guy. He's kind of a thinker. And he did a TED Talk, said, keep your goals to yourself. And I can't remember, this was in 2010, but I think I remember the gist of it, which was by announcing your goal, your brain kind of is satisfied. And therefore it makes it less likely that you're going to actually achieve it.
Interesting.
So check out the TED Talk. It's fantastic. I put it in the thing. It'll be in the show notes on the podcast itself, if you're watching the recording or listening to the recording. But yeah, so yeah, I don't find sharing goals. I find it really useful to write goals down, but sharing them not so much. I tend to make lots of goals and achieve very few of them. So.
Right. Does he have like scientific basis for that?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. I watched this 14 years ago, but it was a very good talk. Enough that I remembered it. So
yeah.
Now I would say that not so much announcing your goals, but being around people with the same goals. That's really effective.
So, yes.
You know, being around people that have the behavior that you want, for example. So Alex Hormozy talks about this. You know, he's the entrepreneur guy that makes all the videos.
yeah.
But he talks about it in terms of like you I guess people like him, like he's insanely ambitious in a way that I find, I'd find exhausting. But he basically, he levels up and basically has to change his friends because his friends no longer match him because their goals and they're completely different, right? So if you want to achieve the goals, you need to be around people with similar goals who can encourage you and help you and don't think you're insane. So, and I guess for me, actually, so I started Retire Japan, and that attracted people with the same goals, and that created a new community for me. So I always say that Retire Japan made the biggest difference to me. So I learned the most, I changed the most by having this community around me. And I think that's why. Because for the first time, even though mostly it was online and there weren't people like, I was hanging out with in real life, I was hanging out with them online, and that was enough to get that kind of reinforcement and encouragement. And, it's normal to try and save a lot of money. Whereas it's not normal. If you go into like normal people, they don't do that. That's not normal for normal people. But in this community, it is normal. So incredibly helpful, I think, to be surrounded by people that, and for me to go to jiu-jitsu, one reason going to jiu-jitsu practice is good is because I'm around other people that think doing jiu-jitsu all the time is normal. So I hugely agree with having that peer group, but not necessarily with just announcing random goals.
Okay. I think we're on the same page. And the next one I have, and then you add one at the end, is like positive visualization, or outcome focus is another term. And this is where you think of the result and not the action. And I've used this. I use this sometimes, and I find it very helpful, particularly just before I'm going to go to sleep. I'm really tired, and I think about something I've got to do tomorrow morning. And I don't think about what I've got to do, but I think about how good I'm going to feel when I've done it. And so this could be paying a nasty bill you don't want to pay. This could be making a debt payment. And it's easy to think, I don't want to pay this. Oh, the bank's stealing my money from me. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe they are, but you got to do it. But think about how good you're going to feel once you've done it. It's out of the way. And then it's like, I'm one step closer to whatever it is you want to be. So think about how you will feel when you do that thing. And then for me, that makes it easier to actually do it.
I think for a one-off, maybe, but for a big goal, for something that you need to do for a long time, I actually disagree with that completely. For the examples you mentioned, absolutely, right? If you got something, an unpleasant task you need to do, helping yourself just do the task and finish it is good. But if you've got a long-term goal, it's the opposite, I think. Rather than focusing on the goal, you need to focus on the habit, the thing you do every day to get to the goal.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that.
So, for example, if you want to retire early, you don't want to be thinking about retiring early all the time. That's not good. You want to be, okay, so today I'm going to do, this is what I need to do today, and then tomorrow, and then so on. And if you focus on the goal, not the outcome, you're more likely to reach it. Kind of like YouTube, right? If you start thinking about, I need to have 1 million subscribers or something, like, you're just going to give up. It's not going to work. But if you just focus on making YouTube videos, then eventually, if you make enough YouTube videos, then you might actually reach the goal.
Yeah. So it's more about short-term things.
I think, one-off versus a long-term kind of thing. That's something that takes a long time, basically. Yeah.
I agree with that. And then, so you've added one, number 11. Give yourself permission. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go on.
Give yourself permission to spend a certain amount, is what you put.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw this, but it was. I think it might be Ramit Sethi. I will teach you to be rich. So I think, because he does this couples thing now. He like talks to couples on his podcast, and they kind of have their money argument in public, and then he kind of helps them get over it. But I think one thing he was suggesting that I really like, actually, is to give yourself permission to say, okay, so set an amount of money, because the mental bandwidth is really important, right? Like, The more time you spend thinking about things, the less concentration you have to focus on other things, right?
Mhm.
Supposedly, this is why, you know, Steve Jobs and people like that wore the same clothing all the time. They didn't have to think about choosing clothes. They're just, okay, so I'm going to wear this because it's the same thing I wear all the time. I don't think about clothes. Clothes is not a thing that I think about, you know, because I'm thinking about other things. That's why I tell my wife why I'm so scruffy and just wear t-shirts. But in the same way, if you say, okay, so anything that costs less than 1,000 yen, I'm not even going to think about. You know, I have permission to spend 1,000 yen. This is assuming that, you know, you're reasonably frugal and you have your money under control, and your problem is spending money rather than saving it. If you're still in that, like, I haven't got any money, I can't save thing, then this is a very dangerous thing to do. But for people who have flipped that, because I find it's really difficult to start spending after years or decades of not spending.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're focusing on optimizing your spending and saving as much as possible, it becomes a habit. And at some point, you need to flip that habit, change it, and start spending instead. Because now money's not the constraining factor; time is, because you're running out of time now, and you might as well use your money for the purposes that will make your life better, right? Whatever they may be. And one thing that I found, and my wife as well, so like, you know, grocery prices are going up now. So like my wife's like, oh my God, cabbage is so expensive. I can't possibly buy cabbage. And I'm like, you can, you know, I mean, okay, it costs twice as much as it used to, but it's still only 400 yen. You know, you don't have to think about spending 400 yen. We can afford that. Just buy the cabbage, right? And so, yeah, so I think having that, whatever that amount may be for you, to say, you know, I don't worry about things that cost this much. If we want it, then we just buy it. It's not a discussion. I don't need to get permission from my spouse. You know, we can just, you know, spend that amount of money and it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it depends where you are in the tree of life, I think.
Yeah. I heard of companies use this. I think it might have been Southwest Airlines or something, where I don't know if it still is now, but their mission or their motto used to be like, we'll keep the customer happy. Whatever it takes, we'll keep the customer happy. Not whatever it takes, but we'll keep the customer happy. And so the support staff, I think, had this sort of drilled into them, like, your goal is to keep the customer happy. And if you can do that within a limit of, say, $100, don't ask for permission, just do it. So if it's somebody moaning or something and you can make them happy within $100, just do it. And take 5 minutes, it'll save a whole lot of time elsewhere. They'll be happy. And yeah, a similar kind of thing. There's this threshold below which it's not worth thinking about.
I think, yeah, some luxury hotel group has that. Like,
oh, really? Yeah.
Aman or something.
Right.
Where, yeah, the staff have discretionary funds to just do random stuff.
Oh.
And it makes sense because obviously often keeping track of expenses is more expensive than the actual expenses, you know, at that level. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Anyway. So those are our psychological tricks. If you have any more, please let us know. Actually, maybe we could get suggestions and critique them next time.
Yeah, go for it. Fill the comments.
Send in your ideas and we'll rip them to shreds next time.
Yeah. Good stuff. So we move on to the next thing?
Yeah.
I don't know what the next thing is because you just put something here on the agenda and not told me about it. Like, what's going on?
Well, it's not clickbait because it's real, but kind of clickbait. So I'm possibly going to be starting a new job.
Are you crazy? Yeah. Working for money?
JOB. But it's not a full-time job. So I might be working part-time, hopefully. And yeah, I'm gonna maybe be taking over a class at my jiu-jitsu club.
Oh, I see.
So I'll be an assistant instructor at my jiu-jitsu club, possibly.
Wow, and that's paid?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow. Doing what you enjoy and getting money for it. That sounds good.
Exactly.
And keeping
fit. Although, you know, you got to be careful that it doesn't take the enjoyment away.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you're teaching, you don't really get to join in the class. So,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
but I mean, for me, it makes all sorts of sense. Basically, one, it's motivational. So I struggle with consistency with jiu-jitsu. I'll have, weeks or months where I kind of get out of the habit of going, and then it's kind of hard to start again. But if you're the teacher, you have to go.
Yeah.
It's not about whether you feel like it or whether, I've got to finish this YouTube video or whatever. There's no excuses because you have to go. So that's going to be the main one for me. And then the other one is obviously like, the best way to learn something is to teach it, right? To try and explain it to someone else, because you need to really know the details, and then they're going to ask you questions about it. And so that's my reasons for doing that. And I think it does pay a small wage that wouldn't be worth it in the slightest if I was doing it for money, but it's nice. It's kind of a nice recognition, I guess.
It must be rewarding as well. I get what you'll find out, but if you've got enthusiastic students who want to progress, then that must be rewarding in itself.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's not. I mean, they're at my level. It's not like they're my students or something. It's like I'll be running a class that I would normally be a student in. But
I see.
So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty psyched, and it also kind of leads into this project idea I have. So I've been thinking about for the last few weeks.
You don't like sitting still, do you? Right? What is it?
Now, my best friend in England, like every time I see him, he's like, "What stupid idea have you had now?" But basically, so my wife's school, we're trying to package it and maybe get someone else to take it over. And if we manage to do that, then obviously we'd have a lot more flexibility. And I think it would be really interesting to just try a bunch of part-time jobs here in Japan. Like, just like work in a convenience store for a month or two, once or twice a week kind of thing. Or like, work as a security guard in Japan, or, work in construction. Just try these little jobs.
For life experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I think I'd probably improve my Japanese. I'd probably learn more about society. I might find I really enjoy something that I hadn't thought about before. And I think it would be amazing content for the YouTube channel.
Right. There we go.
And maybe the blog as well.
How I made enough to retire at the local convenience.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, what kind of jobs are there in Japan that a permanent resident, so I've got no restrictions on employment, visa-wise. I can do any job I want to. So a permanent resident with reasonable Japanese. So my Japanese is reasonable. It's not perfect. It's not great, but it's reasonable. I can do anything apart from handwrite stuff, basically. So I'd really struggle to handwrite a lot of things. I can type, I can read somewhat, I can get by in most situations. So what kind of jobs could I realistically apply for and do, given that there's a labor shortage where people are happy to hire, students and people who don't have decent Japanese? So, what could I do? I was wondering, I could do konbini, I guess. Work in a convenience store, probably. I've seen supermarket cleaners advertised. Security guards, always.
Manage the line of cars outside the Costco petrol station.
Construction, yeah, all that stuff. I think you have to be old to do the parking lot ones. I've never seen anyone who isn't old doing that.
Yeah. What about park maintenance? If the parks are run by the city, then you're employed by the city.
Like gardening?
And yeah.
I hate gardening.
Oh, okay.
My wife loves it. My wife has plants everywhere, and I just nah. I don't think so. I mean, maybe if I tried it.
I think a lot of it is the grass cutting, though, with those trimmers. No,
hate it. Hate it. I have to go and do it at my in-laws' place every so often.
Oh, right. Okay.
Coffee shop. I'd love to work in a coffee shop. I like coffee. Yeah. Bookshop. Love bookshops.
Yeah.
Driving. There's a few driving jobs, aren't there? Do like delivery stuff, Uber Eats. Maybe get a license and be a taxi driver.
Oh,
that might be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, it's not paid, but I used to volunteer. There's a charity in Japan called Second Harvest. And
I donate to them. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
right.
one of my
Yeah.
regular charities.
Oh, right. Yeah, I really like them. And they had a local office not too far from me where I used to go and volunteer. And that was the weekend. They would get this food from companies that was, they said it was going out of date. It was 3 months from the date, but that's enough for the supermarkets to say, no, we can't put this on the shelves. It's too close. And so they would get this boxes and boxes of food, which was really heavy, really hurt my back, and then distribute it to people on lower incomes. And they had to come and prove it with a little book thing. But that was really, really interesting. Really nice people to work alongside, people I wouldn't normally meet. And then the people that came, some people would, see the same people each time. You gradually get to know them a bit, and all different walks of life. It was really, really interesting thing. Unfortunately, they decided to close down that office, and now it's only in Tokyo or Saitama, I think, or something.
Okay.
Which is probably good for my back because it really did hurt. But yeah, it doesn't have to be paid work, I suppose, does it?
That's true. I think it might be slightly more interesting if it was paid.
Oh,
possibly. Yeah. Like I've done volunteering in the UK. I did homeless shelter, and I was on one of those like lines, when people call you up, like what are they called?
Oh,
counseling kind of lines.
Wow, that must be
for
hard.
the uni. That was interesting because we had a lot of training, and then we'd have like overnight shifts with 2 of us. And yeah, that was about it. Any other good jobs out there? once I get it started, I mean, realistically, I'm probably not going to do it as long as I've got the school, because that kind of takes priority.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when I start this off, I will be asking for suggestions, maybe even get people to vote on what the next one's going to be.
Yeah. I did again. This wasn't. Well, was it paid? I think it was minimal, but we were back in the UK. Used to live about an hour away from Silverstone, and love cars. I'm a big car fan. Yeah, Silverstone racetrack. And a friend of my dad's used to do voluntary marshalling at the track. And one time he said, we need an extra pair of hands. Do you want to come along? So I did, and then I ended up going a few times marshalling at Silverstone. And that was really, really cool, because when they're going around, it wasn't for big races. It was just like sort of local, weekend events. But you get to see the cars going around, and then when they're having a break or something, you chat with people and you walk around and get close to the cars. And a really nice bunch of people. When it was all finished, one time one of the guys had the camper van, so he went and had barbecue and a few drinks in the camper van around the fire. It was really, really good fun. But again, I can't remember. We either got paid nothing or very little.
Yeah.
But anyway, sports events or some kind of thing like that. Sports events or concerts, like ushering or some kind of managing or assisting. Yeah,
I mean, with the labor shortage now, I think there's all sorts of things that maybe 10 years ago wouldn't even have been options, but now they just need hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So hopefully I'll be starting my new job soonish, and then the other one probably 6 months, a year away at least.
All right. Cool. Look forward to hearing how that goes. Now then,
news, I guess.
Yeah, into news.
We don't have any shameful investments to talk about today, thankfully.
Well, I've got lots from way back in the past, but not for today. So now you again, being busy. This RetireJapan TV is not enough for you. You want more.
Yes, we need more. No, actually, people demanded more. So I was quite happy just plugging along. And people were like, no, the RetireJapan TV is too long. I'm not going to watch that. No one's got time for that. But I do like podcasts. So please make a new podcast that's not 2 hours long. So I came up with this bite-sized. I think you came up with the bite-sized concept, actually.
Yeah, just to differentiate it. Yeah, the Retire Japan bite-sized podcast is what it's called. That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah. So they're short little podcast episodes, probably 2 to 6 minutes. I think the longest one is. There's 17 of them already. And now, actually, I've had some people complain they're too short. So, you just can't please everyone.
Right.
They're like, it's too short. It's not worth it. I mean, come on. Come on. Give me a break.
Right. So what kind of stuff are you covering in them then?
So it's the same as this. So it's like personal finance, investing, retirement, life in Japan. And I think there's a bit of a mix in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about NISA. I think the first one was about NISA. The latest one was about permanent residence. Oh no, the latest one's about the police. So what do you do if the police come to your door? Which I've had a few times. So luckily I could talk about
coming
that.
to your door.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons that I talk about in the bite-sized podcast. You should definitely go and subscribe using your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah,
if it's not on your favorite podcast platform, do tell me and I'll get it on there. We've been adding it. People have been telling me, and I've been adding it to various different providers. So,
okay.
Yeah. So next is a story that I wholeheartedly approve of.
Yeah, right. So this is not really finance related, but I thought it was interesting.
Life in Japan. It definitely
life in Japan. Yes. In Osaka, if you're in the Kansai area, you are now not allowed to smoke on any of the Osaka streets. And that includes vaping, not just traditional smoking, but vaping as well. Let's put a link to that story in there. There we go. So pretty much that's it. That's the story. Osaka has been strict and has banned. Oh, it's actually related to the World's Fair as well, the expo thing coming up.
Of course it is.
So ahead of that, they have banned smoking on all city streets. So be careful if you're a smoker in Osaka.
Yeah.
Why not quit? Save a bit of money whilst you're at it.
Although I find that like Sendai is really good at not smoking. Like when I came here, it was fairly smoky. Now it's almost completely gone. Like in all public buildings, most restaurants, most places. And I find when I go to Tokyo, far more people smoke. And going to Kansai, even more people smoke. So I don't know how much effect this is going to have. Those patrols better be armed because otherwise they're going to be in trouble. Trying to find people in Osaka.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, how well will
that's the old ladies, let alone anyone else. Like,
yeah. Right. Yeah, in their leopard skin jackets. Next story is finance related, and so this is from Reuters. The Bank of Japan, as people may have been seeing, they keep either raising or talking about raising interest rates, and so they've now gone up to above their highest level in 17 years. So not much really to say about this other than the interest rates are going up. The Bank of Japan's target is a 2% inflation rate, like many countries, and so they're trying to just tweak and adjust the interest rate to achieve that. I think it's they're pretty clear that deflation, that era has all finished now, so they feel confident raising inflation. Does this mean your mortgage rates are going to go through the roof, Ben?
Not immediately. So hopefully people know that Japan has a mechanism that limits how quickly banks can increase your monthly payments, for example. So they can only do it every 2 years, and they can only do it by up to 25% of the current rate, basically. And that's how much you have to pay. So, I mean, your actual mortgage rate interest can go up quicker than that, but you don't have to pay it. So it's going to build up on your loan, but you're not going to see your, monthly payment doubling like people in some countries had. And interest rates haven't really changed all that much. So Emil Gorges, who is kind of a friend of Retire Japan, I think he's a real estate guy in Tokyo. He started doing monthly videos on interest rates. It's super interesting. I've been putting them in the Monday read. But the latest one for February. So by looking at the banks, he said that floating rate loan interest rates have not changed. So you can still get a rate for 0.345% floating at the moment, obviously based on certain conditions. So that's amazing. And he said that fixed 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year loans, the interest rates have gone up slightly. So obviously the banks are looking at the long term, and they're raising rates for that, but not the short term ones, strangely. Again, I'm not particularly worried about mortgage rate interest at the moment. I don't think it's going to go up hugely, and if it did, it would be, catastrophic for the government, for society. So I think it's fairly unlikely they'll allow that to happen.
Yeah, catastrophic for the government because they've already got huge debt, haven't they?
Oh, not even that. I mean, just people would riot because they wouldn't be able to pay their mortgages. And 90% of mortgages in Japan are floating rate. So
that many, really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Because the floating rate's been so low for so long, it was kind of the obvious thing to do. And now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you can't put the rates up because you will literally have people losing their homes and riots and stuff. So
interesting. Yeah, when we got our mortgage here, I went for a fixed rate because I've got that memory of my parents paying double figures interest when I was younger. And despite it being low inflation at the time, it's like, yeah, well, it could happen. That was my view anyway.
Yeah,
I'm still happy I went with that.
I think it's a perfectly good option. So I think floating rate makes sense. 30-year fixed makes sense. It's the ones in the middle I don't understand. I don't understand why 10-year fixed rate and then floating for the rest of the time exists. Like, what is the point of that? If someone can explain it, please let me know. Why would you have a 3-year fixed rate mortgage? So it's expensive now when you know that the interest rates are low, and then later when you don't know, it floats. I don't get it at all. But yeah,
because if
you can fix your entire mortgage, I think that makes sense. It's a you know what it's going to be for the rest of your life. So
yeah. Moving on. Shall we cover this question that's related?
The Starbucks one?
No, just now. The question from Foregone
Conclusion. Let's see.
It's just it's related, so maybe we should quickly cover this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So if you can't pay your mortgage because interest rates have perhaps gone up too much for you, do you lose the house and still have to pay the mortgage? I heard the only way it gets cancelled is death. That's a bit morbid.
I guess so. Yeah. So unlike some countries, like having the home repossessed doesn't pay off the mortgage. They'd repossess the home, sell it, probably at auction. It would sell for almost nothing, and that would be applied to the loan. So you'd still have the loan. In fact, there were some horrible stories after the tsunami where people's houses were gone and they still had a mortgage.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because, the mortgage was still there. The bank doesn't care if the house is there or not. So,
right.
Yeah, wow. It's pretty horrible stuff. Yes, I think it's much harder to discharge debt here than it is in some countries where you can just give the keys back and be like, hey, I'm done, here's the house, that clears the loan. It doesn't clear the loan in Japan. So
good question.
But if you die, then normally the life insurance on the mortgage will pay off the remainder of the mortgage.
Yeah. Right, let's go to something a little bit more light. Starbucks in Japan have announced, this is surprising, I've not seen this before. Starbucks is going to have varied pricing. For some reason it wouldn't let me.
No, not that I go to Starbucks all that much.
They have decided to have variable pricing depending on the city, and consequently, the high rent or whatever is going to lead to higher prices. Not a huge difference. So out of the 2,000 or so stores that they have across Japan, about 600 will raise their prices, and that's going to be in different levels. So basically, you're going to have a A level, a B level, and then all other Starbucks. So the A level ones will be mostly in airports and service areas, and they will have an average of a 6% increase. Let's say your average cup is 420 yen. So they will then go up to 445 yen, as an example. And then the next level down, the B level, which big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, they will have an average of about 4%. So your 420 cup will go up to 440 yen. Interesting to see how this works out. I was kind of shocked and against it at first, but then, they've got higher rents in different places. So maybe, it's fine because they're just passing on.
It's a
customers.
tiny increase as well. I was thinking
It's
maybe
small, yeah.
like double the prices or something. When you first said that, I was like, okay, so they're
Right.
going to be twice the price or something. But 30% of stores going up, that's a lot. That's more than I thought.
Yeah. I've got a feeling this might be just the start of it, and they're just doing a small increase just to see what the reaction is.
So you won't know what the price is until you walk into the store, like of any store.
Yeah.
Even in the same city, you'll be like, oh, is this an expensive one or a cheap one? Like,
yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Are they franchised Starbucks stores? So they own them all?
That's a good
Because if
question.
they're franchised, I can't imagine the franchisees being happy about this. Like, so my store is more expensive than the other one.
I really don't know. But what I do
tiny,
know,
like 4% or 6%, or it's like, okay, yeah, whatever.
What I do know, or rather what I predict, 99% likely to happen, is that one, they will increase that difference over time, and two, I think other chains are looking at this and likely to copy it unless something goes disastrously wrong.
Well, I mean, last week we were in Appi ski resort, and prices were 2 or 3 times what they should be in Japan. But no one cared because everyone was from Australia and China and Europe and Canada and stuff. So yeah, that kind of model, I guess. Areas with lots of kind of tourists, basically, can charge more, basically. And the tourists don't actually mind because for them it's still cheap. And they don't know what the price should be, right? Much like me when I first went to Thailand.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right then, onto something completely different. And this is something I saw you post about, which is a change in the upper limit of very high value medical treatment in Japan, which currently is the limit on how much you have to pay for it, isn't there? I don't know much about
Japan,
this.
Yeah, okay. So Japan, I saw this on TV, so I take no credit. I caught it on Asaichi, which is I like it. It's a morning kind of talk program, but they've got lots of topics, and they normally start with a financial topic, which is really cool. So around, I think the program starts at like 8:30 after the drama, the morning drama. And normally their first topic recently tends to be financial. So they're talking about pensions, they're talking about investing, they're talking about this medical thing. So currently in Japan, if you're using your national health insurance and you have kind of a high cost thing, a hospital stay or an operation or kind of expensive drugs or something, there is currently a monthly cap on how much you have to pay out of pocket. So your 30% of the bill is capped based on your income. So when I had my hip operation in hospital, the bill was actually, my 30% of the bill was like 3 million yen or something. But because of the cap, I only had to pay 80,000 of the 3 million or whatever. So that was very welcome. But this cap is going to be increased under a proposal. It's going to go up by 10% this year, and then it's going to go up by a further 20%, I think, in 2027. So a total of 30% increase on the monthly cap, which is going to affect a lot of people. I mean, it's still income-based, so there is still that. If you've got a low income, it's still lower, but it's going to be more than it used to be. And this, I think, just reflects the reality of funding healthcare in Japan with the older population who pay less, right? So if you're older, you pay 10% or 20%. And only if you have a high income, and remember, income is not investments. You can have people who are wealthy but don't have a high income, and they're also paying less towards their medical treatments. So the system is getting more and more expensive, and therefore we're going to be asked to pay more, I think.
Right.
Now, the opposition parties are all like, this is outrageous, people can't afford it, and we'll see where the proposal ends up being. But
Should probably make it really clear. This is not the regular medical expenses. This is only for the really high cost procedures, like a big operation or something.
Yeah.
Right. What is the cutoff point actually, where they judge this is just regular medical stuff and this is a high value one?
Well, it's if you have to pay more than the cap for your income.
Okay.
So for me,
and it's that cap that is changing.
The cap is going up. So for example, mine used to be 80,000 yen or so. It would now be later in the year. It'll go up to 88,000 yen, and then in a couple of years' time, it'll go up to almost 100,000 yen or more.
Oh, I was getting confused. Okay, so there's not actually a cutoff point above which it's classified as a high value thing. It's just anything up to that limit. Right. Okay.
So the amount you have to pay in a calendar month is capped, and that's what we're talking about.
Right. Okay. And that's different for everybody depending on your income. It's not a one fixed amount.
Yes, exactly. So the lowest is if you have no taxable income, it's about 30,000 yen.
Oh. Wow.
And the highest is if you have an incredibly high income, then it's something like 440,000 yen a month.
Oh, wow. Good. That has made it much clearer. Thank you very much.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Right.
Should
a couple of other things. Let's
finish news and then we'll do some questions. How about that?
Okay, then. A couple of other little things, which is just sort of interesting things I spotted. Nothing too heavy. And the first one is, it's from Reddit. I think you shared this in the Monday Read, the Retire Japan blog and newsletter. And it is statistics that somebody found. So it's on Reddit. It's on somebody on the internet found it. I don't know if it's true or not, but they say that it's from the Bank of Japan's 2022 subcommittee report. And this is financial assets, or the median and the average financial assets for different age brackets in Japan. It includes things like cash, stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, bonds, life insurance, blah, 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 but not property. So excluding property, people in the 20 to 29 age bracket have a median of 200,000 yen in financial assets. That's not the same as an average. An average of 176,000. Hang on, I beg your pardon.
1.76
million. Sorry. So the median and average very different. I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to focus on the median here because I don't think the average makes sense to think about.
Okay.
So the median is, this is like the average person in the 20 to 29 age bracket. Pick somebody randomly from that group, and it'll be 200,000 Japanese yen. Go up to the next bracket, 30 to 39-year-olds in Japan, and financial assets of the median person goes up to 750,000 Japanese yen. Go up to the next bracket. In fact, the next two are the same. So 40 years up to 59 years, and it actually drops, which surprised me. The financial assets are, as a median of 530,000 yen. So it drops quite a bit. But then, presumably once all the education bills and stuff paying for the kids is finished, then people start saving and investing for themselves, and then it jumps up. So from 60 up to 69, it's a median of 3 million yen, and then 70 and above, a median of 4,850,000. That's financial assets excluding property. But overall, I thought that was actually a bit lower than I expected.
That's really shocking.
Considering, especially towards the end, that's like,
because even the average numbers,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's for single households, apparently. Oh, that's a single household. So that's a household, right? So even the averages are nowhere near the government's kind of, you should have 20 million yen to supplement your pension in order to have a normal lifestyle, right? The averages that go up, they're like, 4, 6, 10, 13, 14 million, right? 14 million for people in their 70s is the average. But that's nowhere near 20, is it? So pretty shocking. And the medians are like, oh my God, what are these people? You know, these are the people that are trying to live off Nenkin. I don't know if you remember that video I did where I reacted to a news story about people trying to live on Kokumin Nenkin.
Yeah.
And it's just depressing. And that is the future that is waiting if you don't take control of your finances, basically, because the government's not going to help you out. There's far too many people that need help, and they basically make sure you can't starve, but that's it.
Yeah.
And even so, people starve. So,
going back to the average and the median thing. So the reason why I focus on the median, people may be aware, but the average is you add the total of all these people together, and then you divide by the number of people, and that gives you the average, also known as the mean. But personally, I think it's better to look at the median, because you could have somebody super rich, like say Bill Gates visits Japan, and suddenly the average is going to go up because of his billions. The median, however, probably wouldn't change. So the median is if you get all the people in Japan with their financial assets and you sort of line them up from the lowest to the highest, and then you pick the middle person. And that gives you a better representation of the
true nature of the field.
Yeah, I really want to say average, but it's not average, anyway, the median. And so if Bill Gates arrived, he's just one person stuck on the end. And so the median is not really going to change. And so that better reflects reality, I think. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah.
Pretty grim, I found, actually. Assuming this is truthful, because there's a lot of black, secret money floating around Japan. This is why people get burgled, and the thieves made away with 30 million yen in cash. Like, that money presumably is not reflected in these statistics. So
right, yeah.
But still, pretty shocking.
Yeah. And then one more story I found was a light-hearted thing to finish off on. The true costs of being on YouTube, which made me think of you. And it's about this lady who has made a good channel, got very professionally made cooking videos that she does, pretty popular, but she's stopping doing it after, I think it's 4 or 5 years, because the money is just not working out. And you would think successful channel doing what, must be doing well, but no. Now, it turns out in this particular person's case, they were putting a lot of money into really professional production, and the money coming in from ads and stuff wasn't covering it. But even so, I found it interesting just to look at how much money they were making, and it's not as much as I expected. I've got their income here. Their top months were $7,500, $7,000, and then the worst months were $1,800, $3,700, which sounds okay. But then she was spending $14,000 per month on actually making the videos and paying for the staff and stuff. So that's a lot. Yeah,
that is a lot.
Can't find her subscription. How many subscribers she had? Forgot
is the channel gone?
No, I can't find the link to it now.
So
anyway, the overall,
she has 231,000 subscribers.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. So there you go. You would think, wow, that's plenty. They must be making loads, and yeah, they are. But she was putting a lot into it and not getting much out of it. Interestingly, she would explain actually per video or per view. So for a video with 30,000 views, she would earn about $300. So the RPM is about $10. Which, I don't know, 30,000 views, that doesn't sound like a lot to me. Is $10 RPM, is that a lot, or is the cooking in segment much lower?
I think it's okay. I'm trying to find mine for Retire Japan. So obviously she's in the States, so much higher advertising money in the States than in Japan.
Yeah.
Which page?
Just put the link to that article. Yeah, if you're into YouTube, or if you're an aspiring YouTuber, it's you don't have to do things like her. You don't have to spend 14,000 a month, but it's still another data point for people sharing.
Okay, so my CPM, just found it.
CPM or RPM? What is it?
I don't know. This is CPM cost.
Okay.
Cost per mil. So every 1,000 views, you get this. Apparently, this is the average. Right. So mine's 1,690 yen.
Oh, so pretty much the same as her then when you put it into dollars.
So yeah, so she's in a bad niche in a really good market, and I'm in one of the best niches in a bad market.
Ah, right. Okay.
Finance is one of the best,
Right.
but Japan pays really badly.
Yeah.
So we're the same. And she has more views than me, but I'm not paying 4,500 yen a video to.
Yeah, why not?
So my costs to make a video are none, because I've already bought the equipment. I bought the camera and stuff.
Right.
I edit my own videos using DaVinci Resolve, which is free professional level software. It's really good. I do have a couple of annual subscriptions to things like Epidemic Sound and Flat Icon for icons, and something called Submagic, which I'm going to stop subscribing to because I don't need it anymore. It's to make short videos, and I kind of got bored of making short videos. So yeah, costs are minimal, and Retire Japan makes about 12,000 yen a month from YouTube.
That's
if I'm consistent. If I'm consistent,
right. That's with about 8,000 subscribers, isn't it?
Almost. Yeah, we should hit 8,000 soonish. So. Woohoo! So yeah, if I don't make videos consistently, that does fall off quite a lot. So if I have a bad month, it'll go down to like 8,000 a month, maybe.
It really makes a difference, even though the videos are still out there.
Makes a huge difference. So you need to, this is the YouTube curse, because you're on the treadmill. If you get off the treadmill, the thing breaks. So you got to keep on the treadmill. That's why people burn out, I think. But yeah, I find if I make a video a month, it's pretty good, and we get up to the 12,000-13,000 a month, which it's not really worth it for the money time wise, but I enjoy it. I think it's a great way to reach more people.
Yeah, it's a form of marketing.
Exactly. Retire Japan's mission is to help as many people as possible. So anything that helps us reach more people and new people is really good. So YouTube's fantastic for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was spending $4,500 per video, it wouldn't work.
That is a lot. Yeah.
We might have more subscribers though.
Yeah. Right. So that's all the news that I have. We got some questions, haven't we? So
let's do some questions.
Back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far back do we have to go?
I was looking. Sorry, folks. We're just going back.
Scrolling through the chat.
Right. There's lots of comments, but not really a question until we get to full conclusion. Oh, we answered the one about the mortgage, didn't we?
Consumption tax.
And so then. Okay. Yep.
So, from foregone conclusion, thank you. Thoughts on consumption tax going up? The math suggests it will have to at some point. Don't know. It was 5 when I came to Japan. And then it went up to 8, and then it went up to 10. It's currently 10. I think it was 0 just before I came to Japan. So, we've gone from 0 to 10 in like 25 years. In the UK, I think it's 20, is it? Or more?
It was 25 at some point, wasn't it?
Yeah. So compared to Europe, I think consumption tax in Japan is quite cheap.
20.
I'm not sure how much they can raise it before people get annoyed. Like already the opposition parties are talking about, reducing it or getting rid of it. So I don't know. It's pretty regressive, consumption tax, right? It affects the poorest people the most. Because poorer people spend more of their money on stuff because they have to buy food and things. So consumption taxes really affects the poorer people in society. So if it did go up, I would like to see categories. So for example, one thing the UK does that I think is quite good is that certain things are exempt from consumption tax, from VAT. So books, for example, are not taxed. I think fresh food isn't. Children's clothes are not taxed. So that kind of targeting might make it slightly better, perhaps. But I can't see it going up a lot, at least in the near future, politically at least. It doesn't seem to be a popular thing to do. So
they already do the targeting, don't they, with food? Take away food and eat in food at the same place has a different tax rate.
Yeah, 8%, and I don't understand why.
No, but the structure is already there, so you would think it's pretty straightforward just to make another category, children's clothes or whatever, and apply the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Neil says that all Japan Starbucks are company owned. Thank you for that, Neil.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, question about iDeCo. So, question is, I have a DC plan at my company. Can I also have an iDeCo account? Possibly. So they did change the rules recently. They made it easier for people to contribute to both a company DC pension and an iDeCo plan. The only great way to be sure, though, is to ask your HR department or possibly the iDeCo, the company DC plan provider for your company, because they'll know if you can also use iDeCo. And then, yeah, you can probably open an account if so. Also, the limits are going to go up at some point. So possibly next year. I think maybe 2026. So they announced the contribution limits going up, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So.
Oh, I thought those two things were both coming in together. So they're not. So one is already in place and the other one is coming up potentially next year.
Yeah.
Okay. MS
I like this one.
Should I bother changing my freezer's emergency cash fund to the new banknotes? I think you mean your freezers help get me out of trouble fund, right?
Yeah, I would do this because at some point the old ones are not going to be, usable anymore. And it's just easier to change them out now, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, I think the new ones are plasticky, so they'll probably survive for longer in your freezer rather than the paper ones or whatever.
Yeah. I hope nobody knows where MS lives. He's just giving away details.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly bought a new Toyota. How did you buy a new Toyota? Like, they're not really for sale at the moment. I guess it depends on the type of car. Some cars, some models are available. Minivans are very much not available right now. Very nice finance question. Nice.
So Kelly again, can I ask what % of all your liquidity would you keep as cash?
Do you have any thoughts, Daniel?
When I look at portfolio, I like looking at portfolio asset allocation, stuff like that. And generally 5 to 10% is what they advise. I think in reality it might be difficult, but they advise that on the one hand, like sort of safety net, but on the other, to sort of make the most of it, opportunities. When there's a sudden opportunity for investment, you got something on hand. So that's what I've seen, but I don't know if that's like sort of recommended for everybody.
Yeah, it depends entirely on your situation, where you are in life, what kind of work you do, everything. So like for me and my wife, for example, we have just over 10%, I think, in cash. And that's because she has a business, so she has enough cash to cover several months worth of payroll and rent and so on. I'm retired-ish, so I have more cash than I would otherwise have. I just find it comforting. And yeah, so at some point, it's not really about optimizing for profit. It's about optimizing for lifestyle and peace of mind. As long as once you hit your goals, especially, then it becomes less important to try and wring every last % out of your assets. So it depends.
Would you include an emergency fund in that, or is the emergency fund? Okay.
No, it's just. So again, like we don't even have an emergency fund. We've got a bunch of cash in bank accounts. Like, do you know what I mean? It stops being important.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
We've also got, like 10 million yen's worth of credit card line that we could use if we really needed to, like that kind of stuff.
That's true. Yeah. Good. Now, Kelly mentioned a car, where you're buying a car, which people might not have caught up on. And so that comes under the next title of the title of the next section, which is Frivolous Purchase Confessional. I don't have a jingle for this. Frivolous Purchase Confessional. And you have yours on here. What's that then, Ben?
Yeah, so I wrote about it in the blog. today. But basically, we've got 4 grandkids now in Sendai and 2 abroad. So my wife's like, "Yeah, we need a minivan," because right now we've got an Aqua. So Aqua, most popular car in Japan for a while. It's a reasonably sized car. You know, it's like it's not quite medium. I think it's kind of on the smaller side of medium. Supposedly fits 5 people, but I think it's more like 4 really. And yeah, so we tried to go skiing with only one of our granddaughters, and with all our ski stuff and things, like we barely fit in the car with 3 of us, and that prompted the conversation to let's buy a minivan, basically, so we can, you know, because my wife's parents as well, we have to drive around quite a bit. So having a vehicle that could seat like 8 people would be a big improvement. So we're looking for that, and we haven't really had a new car before, so we're like, okay, we'll buy a new car, you know, because we can more or less afford it now. Only to find that Toyota are not selling new cars anymore. It seems they don't do that. But you know, so right, if you want a car in the next few months, your only option is to buy something secondhand, because there are no new cars available. The secondhand car prices are pretty much almost the same as new cars, so it's a really weird situation, and it's very frustrating as well. Obviously, do we need to buy a new car? No, obviously not. We should probably buy something kind of, you know, older and more reasonable that does what we need it to do, which is drive around with kids or, you know, elderly people in. But we're gonna spend more money than we need to, just because. Hence the frivolousness of this purchase.
Yeah, we found a similar thing. We bought a second-hand car during the pandemic, actually, because the other one suddenly the gearbox broke, and we didn't have a lot of choice. And yeah, it was second-hand. It is what we normally go for anyway, just save money. But I'm really surprised at putting the bath. Really surprised at how expensive it was. And the guy was saying, "Oh, you know, it's a lockdown. The no parts available to manufacture new ones quickly at the moment." And so we did consider, you know, should we just wait for a while? But it's not changed. The pandemic's over, and I thought things back to normal, but no, it's still crazy high.
So I've had a few comments on the blog and elsewhere where people have said that the reason Toyota doesn't have cars to sell in Japan is because they're choosing to sell them in other markets where they can charge more. So they are still making these minivans that are very popular now, but you know, they can make more money selling them elsewhere, so they're choosing to do that, and therefore the number of cars available to sell in Japan is quite low. Comment from Niels. So rent a bigger car when needed. Yeah, that was what we thought, but we're going to need it regularly, so it would just be annoying, like, if we you know, anytime we go out with the grandkids we need to rent a car. That's just going to be impractical, I think. So it's not just for kind of long trips, it's day to day. So it's like, if we want to go and pick the grandkids up, we can't, they don't fit in our car anymore. If we want to go and pick my wife's parents up and take anyone else, then they wouldn't fit in the car either. So and we are going to keep the Aqua, so we're not replacing our car, we're just getting another one, so we'll have 2.
Kind of, sort of related to this, we like watching an antiques program, Nandemo Kanteidan, where they sort of evaluate ordinary people's like little treasures at home and antiques. And somebody had a tandem the other week, and so there you go. What option is for your tandem? But did you know this? Tandems used to be illegal on the streets in Japan.
Oh,
and then eventually, I think they opened it. Was it one of the Olympics or something? They allowed it then in Tokyo only, and then gradually other cities followed. Now I think tandems, you can ride tandems anywhere, but there was a while where tandems were not allowed to be ridden,
because you're not allowed to ride a bicycle with 2 people.
Oh, that could be it.
Presumably, that's why there wasn't an exemption to that. So it didn't matter if the bicycle has 2 seats. You're still 2 people on one bicycle.
That makes sense.
I'm guessing that's where the police kind of interpretation came
Possibly, from. Yeah. Well, anyway, but now it's legal. You should get, how many would that be? Like 3-4 tandems? Problem solved.
We need to have like all those like different baby child seat things like everywhere, you know, like the electric mamacharis with like 3 child seats.
The deadly ones. Yeah. Anyway, shall we move on? What do we have next? Oh, it's my turn. Right. So a frivolous purchase. Although, is it a purchase? We were very fortunate to go to Bali last week. Is it already a week? And this is actually work related. Work remotely. My company is completely remote, and it's a global company. And most things happen in the US or in Europe. Anyway, somebody decided to organize a meetup, and it's an optional meetup in this side of the world. So we jumped on the chance, and they picked Bali because we've got several people down in Australia, and it's kind of convenient for everybody. Had a wonderful time. Both my wife and I went. It was wonderful, and we decided to stay a couple of extra nights at the end to have a little, holiday of our own. And we're looking at hotels. We are members of the Marriott chain club thing, and so we're looking at what we can use there. We've got loads of points because we just haven't really used them. I think we spoke last time about how hard it is to use air miles for flights. I've been saving up these Marriott points thinking I'm going to convert them to air miles at some point, but it's just not really proving practical. So all these Marriott points, let's use them. If you look at a hotel and let's say it's the equivalent of 40,000 Japanese yen for a night, the Marriott points would be normally roughly about 40,000, about 1-to-1. But when you go up the ranks, you get luxury hotels, which might be double. It might be 80,000 points, but the yen price would be triple. And in the case where we eventually stayed, if we'd have paid cash, it would have been 120,000 yen a night, which is ridiculous. But it was 80,000 points. We had lots, and we thought, let's do it. So our frivolous purchase was a very luxurious 2-night stay in Bali, and it was wonderful.
I don't think that's frivolous at all.
There you go. If you're watching the video, you can see.
Look at that.
And we didn't deliberately time it, but it happened to be the rainy season, although it hardly rained. It's just after Chinese New Year. It's just before the spring holidays. And so there was hardly anybody there. We got treated like royalty. It was just wonderful. And yes, we would go back. We would do it again. So,
nice.
yeah.
I mean, I got into hotel points a long time ago. So, yeah.
You wrote a book about it, didn't you? Or was that
age? Yeah. It's still on Amazon. It's a bit out of date. So for me, basically, the purpose of hotel points and air miles is not to get free stuff. It's to get really nice stuff for the price I'd pay for normal stuff.
Oh.
For me, that's my use case. I'm not trying to use them to save money. I'm trying to use them to get much nicer things for the same price as I would pay for a normal thing. Right, especially for flights. So, using points to book business class, you can roughly do that for the cost of economy.
Right, when you calculate
when you're buying air miles or getting air miles and so
on. Yeah.
And the same for hotels. Like I quite like staying in nice hotels, but not always paying for it.
Yes, we wouldn't have paid real money for this, but we had the points, and so glad we did.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Marriott points. So, and there's a Westin in Sendai, so whenever it's cheap, we go and stay there.
Really? In your own town?
Staycation.
So I highly recommend that. What's the next thing? Oh, money tip, and I need to get it ready. 1 second, everybody. I've lost it. Here we go. Okay, right. Sorry for the slight delay there. So, money tip. I have a money tip for you, and this is kind of inspired by Monocle. I might mention it before. Monocle magazine, for just general good shopping advice and money saving tips and stuff. And I use kakaku.com a lot. I think I mentioned it before, and I'm sure other people here use it. kakaku.com, kakaku.com. It's all in Japanese, unfortunately, but you can use it for comparing prices and finding the cheapest price of all sorts of things, and not just prices as well, but you've got reviews on there. I tend to find the reviews on there a bit more reliable than Amazon reviews, especially now. Sorry, slight tangent, but Amazon have this influencer thing now where you can earn money writing Amazon reviews. If you've Well, first of all, you have to be approved. So you have to have an existing audience on YouTube or whatever. And when you pass that, then you can write reviews, and they have to be a certain format or a certain structure. I don't know the details, but I think you might have to have a video. You might have to like divide your review up into certain categories. And then you get paid if people click on your review and then go and buy something. But that gives them an incentive to say nice things about the product. So for me, that means the reviews are going to be even less reliable. Anyway, I like kakaku.com for its reviews, for its price comparisons, but it can also be used for timing. And that's what I want to talk about here. What they kind of hidden recently is with each product that you have on kakaku.com, and I'm going to pick something. Oh, okay, here I've just randomly picked, what is this? A Hitachi vacuum cleaner. I'm going to put it in the comments. It doesn't mean like I recommend this particular vacuum cleaner. It's just randomly picked out. Anyway, they have a little link there near the price in red, and it says Kakaku Sui Graph. The graph in katakana, if you look for that, and then click that, and it shows the price over time. And they only go back a couple of years. So if it's something older than that, you won't see past 2 years. But generally, if you're looking to buy an appliance and you want to get something pretty new, but you want to save a bit of money, you can look at this and see the rate at which it's dropped. And I've been through several of these, and looking at the Monoclo magazine's recommendation as well, there seems to be a kind of pattern. It does depend on the appliance, but generally they drop down pretty quickly at first. And mostly after 3 to 6 months, that's when you're going to get the biggest drop in price. And after that, it kind of levels off relatively slowly. So get something as soon as it's announced, as soon as it goes on sale, a new product, it's going to be its highest point. Gradually, it'll go down. 6 months later, that's when you'll get it for a good price without having to wait too long. Now, you might think, I'm going to wait until a new one comes out and then pick up the old one cheaper. But surprisingly, it doesn't usually work. Sometimes, maybe even often, the price of the old thing will go up when the new version comes out.
Okay, why?
Because there are not many people offering the old one, and there are lots of people offering the new one. Now, the new one might still be more expensive, but if you had bought the old one before the new one was announced, let's say a month or two before, then you would get it at its lowest point. And then the new one is announced. Everyone, or all the retail outlets are selling the new one. Lots of competition. The price is going to be pushed down by that competition. Not many people are selling the old one, and so the price kind of goes back up. So the sweet spots are either 3 to 6 months after a new product is announced, or just before a new one is announced. If you can see when the old one is discontinued, that's the time to get it before the new one actually goes on sale.
That's really counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And so another way to make use of that is when you're looking at a product page on kakaku.com, it actually shows how many retail outlets are selling it. It's a tempo, and it says for this vacuum cleaner, 44 tempo. So if you've got a number like that, 44, okay, that's good competition. It means you're probably going to get a good price for it at the moment. But if it's 10 or less, then you're probably not going to find a bargain because there's no competition there. So it's a good little thing to look out for, is the number of retail sellers. So a top tip for buying an appliance, if you want to get something new, the latest thing, just hold off 3 to 6 months after it's announced, or wait until it's discontinued, but not so long that the new one comes out.
So I guess the best, so say air conditioners always come out in summer, you want to buy it in winter, basically? Is that going to be the best price?
Possibly. It depends on the appliance, but I don't think so. It also depends when they release it. So you can't necessarily say that it's going to be this time, because some might release their new products May, and some companies might release new products in October. So it depends on their release cycle as well as the seasonal cycle. So from what I've seen, I haven't found a hard and fast rule.
Okay.
And yeah, it depends on the price. I did got a quick couple of specific examples for you. I looked at TVs, a couple of Sharp TVs, and interestingly, they release them at different times of year. So there's one Aquos XLED 40 something 50-inch TV, and that one was released in June, and the cheapest point was in November, 5 months later, which was 26% cheaper than when it was launched. By the way, I'm looking at the average price here, not the very, very lowest pricing. So you could get it lower than that, but I want to stick with the average. Another TV, the Sharp Aquos 4K 40 blah 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 43-inch, that was released in October, and the cheapest price was 3 months later in January. That was an 18% drop. So yeah, the time of year is a little bit different. So it's difficult to say this particular season is a good point. I think it depends on the company's release cycle as well as the season. The best thing to do is look at the charts for the products and see sort of the what's happened in the past for that particular brand. And one more little tip, actually, when you're looking at Kakaku.com and you don't want to get the current model, you want to get something a bit older, go to the mobile version of Kakaku.com, because that actually has a link, not on every product page, but on a lot of them, a link to the newest model and the oldest model, and then it shows you the price difference between the two. And for some reason, it's not on the desktop website. I don't understand why. But yeah, the mobile website has a little Shin Q button. So Shin, new, Q, old. Look for that, and it will show you the two products side by side.
Wow. I guess younger people use smartphones and they're more price conscious. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, could be.
Perhaps it's just those old fogies that use desktop computers, right?
yeah, it could be. Yeah. So there you go. I like Kakaku.com. It's a bit messy. It's not the prettiest design in the world, but
gives you a good overview though, doesn't it? And quite quickly. So
yeah, gives you the facts. Okay, then that's my money tip.
All right, forum updates. Any final questions, and then we'll wrap up. So on the forum at the moment, looking at active topics. So we've got a really good mix at the moment. So one is about someone who booked an English camp for their child, paid a deposit, the camp was cancelled, and they didn't get a refund. So it seems like a kind of scammy operation. They're wondering what their options are in terms of getting a lawyer or trying to, fight to get their money back. Read all about it on the forum. Someone's thinking about getting rid of a bond ETF called BNDX, which is non-American bonds, basically. There's a big discussion about whether they're overthinking things. We think they are, but there's a thread about how to qualify as a home student for UK universities, because they have different fees for home students and foreign students. Foreign students pay a lot more, but it's quite difficult to get classed as a home student. So that thread has a lot more information. Talking about retirement planning. So a forum member was able to sell an investment property for a lot more money than they were hoping for. So they were wondering what to do with that cash, how to invest it. It's a very nice problem to have.
It is, yeah.
We had a thread about children who were born with dual nationality and are now adults. So how to address that. Basically, in Japan, the current policy seems to be the government ignores people like that. So people who are born with two nationalities, who don't acquire a new one, they're just born with two, the government basically leaves them alone. But if you acquire a new nationality, you lose your Japanese nationality. So very important distinction to be aware of there.
But when you get to a certain age, I think it's 22, you then have to give up one of them officially. And I think when you...
So you must endeavor to give one of them up. And the current interpretation of that is that you can, just keep trying. It's fine.
But when you fill in the form to... Sorry, the bath's full now. When you fill in the form to renew your passport, though, you have to say whether you've got another nationality passport.
Yes, you do. And you must answer that truthfully, because not doing so would be a crime. But in practice, it doesn't matter. The passport office is like, okay, thanks for telling us. Here's your new passport.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Now, should you have acquired a new nationality, that would then become a problem. So you'd lose your Japanese citizenship. And there's lawsuits by people who didn't realize that this would happen when they took another nationality and suddenly found that they weren't Japanese anymore.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, if you're born under the current rules, which could change, the government is quite happy to ignore people who are born with two nationalities, and there's no need to give them up at the moment.
Thanks.
Which is nice, because the rest of us, should we acquire Japanese nationality, we'd have to give up the other one first, unless we're from Mexico, because Mexico doesn't allow people to give up their nationality. So Mexicans can have dual Mexican-Japanese citizenship.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Totally unfair. There's a thread about gold. So gold has been doing very well recently. So there's a gold mania thread. There's a thread about the Daily Telegraph newspaper. I'm not sure why, but people wondering what the Daily Telegraph was like. Some opinions there. There's a thread about savings options in the UK. Now, I don't know why the forum's so UK based all of a sudden. Like, I don't think there's a huge proportion of UK people on there necessarily. There's a question about, or a thread rather, about people's experiences buying property in Japan from abroad and what kind of, is required in that case, what kind of procedures. It seems to be getting much easier. So in the past, you might have had to come to Japan a few times during the process to do things, and now you can more or less do it online using notaries and so on. There is a thread about resuming Japanese self-study, so how to go about, jumping back into self-studying Japanese. There's a really cool thread that I was really happy to see about a French kind of insurance system called the Assurance Vie, and how it might play with the Japanese tax system. So I think it was great. I'm really happy to see, different kind of less represented countries being on the forum. I think that's super important. So yeah, if you're from somewhere that isn't necessarily the UK or whatever, do bring your questions, because I think it's really helpful. People might be able to answer them, and they're there for people in the future as well. And then there's a thread about people asking for Japanese tax accountant recommendations, which is comes up all the time. So I feel like we should make a page or something on the site just so we can be like, yep, just go over there. Yeah, and that's the forum. So go to the forum. Remember, you don't need to register to read the forum. You can just read it. You do have to register if you want to post, but it's fairly easy to do so.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. Good stuff.
It's great. It's the highlight of my day, logging in and reading all the forum.
Oh, really? Oh, that's nice to hear. Good.
And deleting all the spam ones.
Right. Do you get a lot?
So the way I have to take some credit for this. I think it's genius. So basically, when you register for the forum, the first 5 posts have to be approved manually by me. So I will see your posts before they go on the forum. And so far, it's been pretty difficult for spammers to get through that, because they have to post 5 real non-spammy posts in order to be able to post a spam post to the forum, and basically they can't. The first post is spammy, so I delete their account.
Yeah.
It's great. Although we did have one thing where people got clever, and they made 5 posts, they got approved, they started posting normal posts, and then later they'd go back and change the old posts. Because it wasn't a new post, I wouldn't see it. So we'd have these like links to random sites buried, and it was nasty. So I had to remove the editing functionality from the forum, so you can now only edit your posts for about 10 minutes.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
After that, they get locked. So but yeah, the fight against spam, we're not losing yet.
Relatedly, I saw a investment forum this week that I've not seen for a website, and to sign up, you email the buzzword, and then what is the forum host's favorite animal, and you had to go to his about page to find out that it was such and such a bird. I thought that was really clever, and he even put a hint in, if you want to know my favorite animals, please take a look in this section or something. So it was pretty easy to find if you're a human. But
we used to have that.
Easy to left
We
it.
used to have a question that was what's cat in
is-
Japanese in Romaji?
Oh, all right.
Because anyone in Japan can answer that, right?
Yeah. Why did you remove it?
It just seemed kind of pointless because, like, yeah, obviously the spammers can do that as well, right? Even AI can do that now. So I was like,
yeah, okay. The trouble we go to. I wanted.
We're so bad at technology that everything's manual, so it's almost impossible to get in.
Works in your favor. I wanted to go a bit back to foregone conclusion. First of all, they mentioned the Keeper app. I think that might be for Amazon only, but anyway, it's an app where you can set alerts when things reach sort of your target price. But also, they've got a question talking of bicycles. Oh, sorry, not a question, but anyway, they want to point out that laws and fines for bicycle riding are kicking in. It's a good idea to get cheap bicycle insurance. It doesn't cost much. Now, funnily enough, so where we live, there's a sort of the road goes down the hill, and then there's a stop sign at the bottom, and then you go through the rice fields and stuff, and there's not much traffic on here. I mean, there is traffic, but not a lot. Never seen a traffic jam around here, but the police know that spot and they hang around. There's a nice little sort of alley where they can hang out and just catch people, and then their friend will stand behind that building down there, and they do it every month on a Wednesday or something like that, and they get cars not stopping completely at the stop sign. I saw them get someone on a bike the other day on a bicycle.
Good.
Really surprised. I told my son, you stop at stop signs. He says, no, you don't need to stop. They won't. The police don't mind about that. So, well, just saw somebody.
I mind. I shout at people when I'm on my bicycle.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. People riding the wrong way. That does my head.
Oh yeah, that's
like, they're not riding with traffic. They're riding against it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
get on the other side. This is Japan. So I'd love to have the power to find people. I would do it for free. That would be a part-time job I'd do for free. Like,
just go around cycle in Sendai, everybody.
Because I'm a cyclist, so it's a crappy cyclist do my head in. Like, but actually, this bicycle insurance thing, it's compulsory. Most of Japan, if you ride a bicycle, you have to have bicycle insurance, and not having so is going to be bad if you have an accident.
Right.
On top of any expenses that you might have that insurance could have covered. And it is super cheap. I think mine's like 1,000 yen a year.
A year? Oh, wow.
And it includes like lawyer cover. So they give you a lawyer to represent you if, you need a lawyer. And of course, third party cover and stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you ride a bicycle, you would be incredibly foolish not to have some kind of insurance for it.
Ours is included in our car insurance. I think tick a box, and the price increase was next to nothing.
Yeah.
Other questions. What do we have here? Sandeep. Hello, Sandeep. Why we don't get dividends from S&P 500 US stocks in Shin NISA?
I suspect.
Stocks. Okay.
I suspect because it's a mutual fund. I'm guessing. So if it was an ETF, it would pay dividends. If it was a stock, a single stock, it would pay dividends. But a lot of mutual funds in Japan don't pay dividends. So I'm guessing you have an S&P 500 mutual fund, which often won't pay a dividend. Instead, the dividends will be reinvested into the fund, and the fund will grow faster than a fund that did pay out dividends. So you're not losing the dividend; it's just staying inside the fund. And particularly for NISA, this is good because you get to grow your fund without using up your NISA allowance, which is what would happen if the dividends were paid out and then you invested them again. You'd use up your NISA allowance, but this way you don't have to. So this is actually better, I think, for NISA.
Yeah.
But that's probably why.
Yeah. I used to have the ETF, S&P 500 ETF, and that does give you a dividend. It used to be taxed, but they changed the rule, I think, and now it's there used to be double tax. It was a regular Japan tax. If it's outside the NISA, there was a regular Japan, whatever it was, 15-20%, and then there was a foreign investment,
the US tax. Withholding tax.
That was it. Yeah, but now they've got rid of that on ETFs, I think, possibly stocks as well. But anyway, you can have it within the NISA and it's not taxed.
Really?
The ETF, S&P 500 ETF. Yes.
I think there's still, you have to pay the withholding tax. You just can't claim it back in NISA. Because that's a US tax. It's applied on the US side. So possibly the fund can pay it for you. I don't know if they've changed the rules for that.
I'm going to have to find out, but I'm pretty sure they changed the law so that you weren't double taxed effectively. I'll try and find out for next time.
Well, I mean, in NISA, you wouldn't pay Japanese taxes.
Yeah.
So you'd only pay the US tax.
I want to say not paying either. My son's still got this, and I need to check with him. But I want to say no tax, no foreign tax on it at all.
Well, unless the US stopped taxing, and I don't think they did.
No, it was the Japanese law that changed. Because
this is a US tax, withholding tax on dividends. So they are taking it at source.
I'm going to find out. It's code 1655 if anyone's interested.
Ooh. Oh, I think I used to have that.
Yeah, it's pretty sort of standard.
No, I had something similar. Yeah. No. Yes, it's an ETF listed in Tokyo. Yeah, definitely have a look. But I would be gobsmacked if they weren't paying the US withholding tax on dividends.
Okay, one of us will be eating our words next time, folks.
I'll eat something else. I'll find something. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
So Sandeep again. So what should I do? Just don't do anything. It's fine. Yeah, the fund is great. It's perfect for NISA, so you don't need to worry about it.
Good. Jonathan asked a similar question. Is any specific word we can find if a fund pays dividend or not? Because they put it on dividend calendar, only to find out 0 dividend. Oh, really? Yeah,
this is tricky because some funds give you the choice, or rather the broker gives you the choice. So you can choose the reinvesting option, the Saitoshi option, or you can choose the dividend payment option. But neither of them pay them out because the fund doesn't pay them out. So I'm not entirely sure. I think because they wouldn't list a dividend amount, I guess. If you look at the prospectus or whatever, you'd probably see that it's 0 dividends. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
And then he follows that up with some mutual funds actually don't pay a dividend until later time when the fund is established. I don't want to put that in the wrong account. Could this be the thing you're referring to where it's reinvested automatically?
Don't think so. Basically, if you buy a fund and you choose the reinvestment option, they're not going to pay them out. So that's probably the safest way to know what's going on.
By the way, a site that I like to use for checking dividends for different funds, and this includes ETFs actually, is this one, kabuhai-db, kabuhai-database.jp. It used to be called something else. It was Haito DB, I think it was. Yeah, it's really good. And they keep it up to date as well. Like within a day or two of a company announcing a dividend change, it'll be updated in this. So it might be worth checking with that. It also tells you the actual date that it's going to be paid out. Yeah, it's very good. It's got past dates as well. I recommend that for dividend spotting. All in Japanese only, I'm afraid.
Kabuhai-DB.
Yep. Right. I think that's all the questions we've got, isn't it?
Looks like it. And once again, about 2 hours.
Good.
Awesome. All right. Thanks to everyone who joined us today.
Yep.
And let us know if you've got any questions, any topics you'd like to see. So we will take topic requests. And if we think they're interesting, we'll be happy to talk about them next time. Next show, before we finish up, is on the 17th of March. So exactly a month from now, 28 days from now, we'll be back 8 p.m. as usual. And it's going to be a pretty historic RetireJapan TV because it's going to be our last Monday broadcast for a while. So my work situation is changing next year, not because of my new job, but I'm going to be helping my wife a bit more. And that means that I'll be working on Monday evenings. So we put our heads together and we kind of plotted and schemed. And we think Wednesday might be a good day for RetireJapan TV. So from April, we'll be back on a Wednesday. We haven't figured out the schedule yet, I think. We'll tell you next time. So we'll tell you a month in advance, more or less. But it's going to be Wednesdays going forward. I hope you'll be able to join us still. And yeah, do send us some topic suggestions and so on. And then you'll have less of our nonsense and possibly more interesting content. Excellent. Right. Anything else, Daniel?
No, I think that's good.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to clarify, next time it is Monday next time.
Yes, on the 17th.
For the last one. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. And see you next month, hopefully.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Bye.